It is a growing network of member states focused on one goal: ensuring that all children receive a nutritious meal in school by 2030. Partners, including UN agencies, NGOs, and academia, have also joined to support governments. How does the coalition work? As they join, governments issue national commitments, telling the world what they're hoping to achieve and how. The coalition helps them to implement these commitments. In the coalition, countries can connect with each other. Country-to-country exchanges generate learning and inspiration. The coalition is also working at the regional level, where countries are exchanging and establishing peer-to-peer groups. Partners can support the commitments made by governments. There are many others working together in the coalition. Municipalities play a crucial role in the programs and increasingly in the coalition. Lawmakers also help set priorities, assign budgets, recognize rights, and assure accountability. In a networked way, the School Meals Coalition breaks with the traditional logic of North and South, donor and recipient, and recognizes that every member and partner have something to contribute and to learn. The coalition has initiatives that work with governments and partners. They were set up to support countries with 3 challenges. Challenge 1: better evidence so countries can make better decisions. The Research Consortium for School Health and Nutrition is hosted by the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine and connects researchers across the world. They are analysing the impact of school meals, calculating the return on investment, and documenting best practice. Challenge 2: sustainable funding in low-income countries that struggle to reach the poorest children. The Sustainable Financing Initiative is hosted by the Education Development Centre. It is helping countries to design financing plans for their programs and is working with donors on new financing solutions. Challenge 3: a better way to measure progress. The Data and Monitoring Initiative, hosted by WFP, is helping countries monitor progress and is establishing a global database for reporting. This rich ecosystem is supported by a small secretariat and a powerfully committed task force. Together, they create the conditions for this new form of multilateralism. That is, based on country solutions to global problems, grounded in evidence, and intent on breaking silos, to make progress on some of the most important priorities of our time.
Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. It's really exciting to be here at COP28 finally. We've been waiting for this moment the whole year. I'm sure a lot of you are pretty busy coming in and out of session, so thank you so much for joining us today. I have the pleasure to be moderating a session that a lot of governments and a lot of partners have been working very hard to put together for you, so very excited about it. I'm Carmen Burbano, and I'm the director of the School Meals Division and head of the Secretariat of the School Meals Coalition and from the World Food Program. Let me tell you a little bit of the context of this session, and then we'll have really exciting conversations, I hope, with all of you. 2 years ago, governments from the global north and the global south, in the context of the pandemic when schools were still closed, came together during the conversations of the Food Systems Summit to talk about one very specific goal. What if we could get together and decide that every child in the world receives a nutritious and healthy meal in school? What if that could be possible? And what if that could be also an engine to transform food systems, to provide better diets to children, to get them to school, and also, hopefully, to make progress on some of the climate action goals? That was the core of the conversation of what then became the School Meals Coalition, the largest and most successful initiative to come out of the Food Systems Summit, and one of the most successful multilateral initiatives that are in place today. 2 years later, the coalition now has almost 100 countries that have signed up. It is led by France, Finland, and Brazil, and more than 100 partners that have signed up to support governments with their commitments. These are the largest UN agencies, WFP of course, but also joined by UNICEF, by UNESCO, by FAO, by WHO, by IFAD. We have NGO partners, Plan International, World Vision. We have foundations, the Rockefeller Foundation, the think tanks, academic partners, etc., have all come together to support governments in these really ambitious and important goals. So, about a year ago, these governments said, well, if we're going to do this, if we're going to expand our programs, spend so much money, then really how can we think about a food systems approach to these programs and a climate action approach to these programs? What would it take? What can we do to make progress on all of these things at once? It isn't enough just to get children into school, which these programs actually do. It isn't enough to get them fed. We need to make sure that this is nutritious, but also what more can we do? And so this is the session where, for the first time, we are discussing the product of a year and a half of an effort led by the research consortium of the coalition, the Research Consortium for School Health and Nutrition, who have been, with more than 100 academics, coming together and thinking through that big question that countries pose to them. What if we could use these programs for food systems and climate action? What would that look like? That's one big piece of what this session is about. And then the second really exciting piece is that we have several governments, and with us we have one, the government of Kenya, that has decided to really move forward with these approaches at scale. And we'll hear about that now. So before we get us started, we have here, and I want to invite to the stage, please, to kick us off, Her Excellency Soipan Tuya, the Cabinet Secretary, Minister of the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry of Kenya. She will be speaking to us on behalf of the First Lady of Kenya, who really wanted to be with us today, but has sent her remarks, and we're very excited to hear what she has to say. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Professor Donald Bundy, Director of the Global Research Consortium on School Health and Nutrition, Ms. Carmen Burbano, the Director of School-Based Program Division, World Food Program, Mr. Hans Olav, Energy, Climate and Food Security Minister of Foreign Affairs of Norway, Dr. Roy Steiner, Food Initiative, Vice President of the Rockefeller Foundation, Mr. Charles North, the Deputy CEO, Global Partnership for Education, Ms. Karsten Stenhol, Special Envoy of Climate and Environment, Ministry of Foreign Affairs for Finland, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. As has been said, I will be speaking in this forum today with a number of different hats. One is to represent Her Excellency Mama Rachel Ruto, the First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, who was supposed to be speaking here today. I'm also the Minister for Environment, Climate Change and Forestry for Kenya. And one of the things that is very critical for this initiative is a whole-of-government approach to be able to realize the ambitions. And therefore, my ministry will be playing a very critical role. It is therefore an honor to stand before you today. The event is an opportunity for a discourse on the convergence between the future of our planet and the health of our children. Before I continue, receive very warm greetings from the First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, Mama Rachel Ruto. She would have loved to be here today, and I am honored to deliver her speech to you. We gather at a time when the world grapples with the daunting challenges of malnutrition, food insecurity, and environmental degradation that are inextricably linked and demand our immediate collective action. The intersection of food systems, climate change, and child health is not just a matter of policy discussion. It is a pressing reality that impacts millions globally, a reality that calls for transformative solutions and unprecedented collaboration. Our world faces a global nutrition crisis, as highlighted in the comprehensive white paper by the Research Consortium for School Health and Nutrition. This crisis manifests in various forms, from the hunger that plagues vulnerable populations to the obesity epidemic stemming from unhealthy diets. The same food systems that feed us are also contributing to environmental catastrophes, marked by habitat loss, biodiversity depletion, and escalating greenhouse gas emissions. These challenges are most acute in the Global South, where the ramifications of climate change intensify the struggle for food security and nutrition, threatening the health and future of our children. Let me share the story of faith. The year was 2017, when the First Lady, Mama Rachel Ruto, then spouse of the Deputy President, joined some friends for a feeding activity at one of the informal settlements in Nairobi. At the venue, the children were asked to line up so they could be served. As the exercise was going on, one of the attendants noticed this little girl, whom she had served just a few minutes before. Her plate gave her away because it had food remains. They were surprised that she was able to finish her food that first. On inquiring whether she had eaten and was coming for a second helping, the little girl answered that she could not eat because she had left her ailing mother and younger brother at home without food. She proceeded to show them the bag where she had put the first serving. They also learned that her name was Faith. Her story touched everyone. The attendant went ahead and served her enough food to take back home to her family. Faith represents many girls and boys in the Global South, many of whom miss school as they join their families to look for food through begging and doing manual tasks. This puts our children at many risks, one of which is the risk of sexual assault and early pregnancies. It also means that we are raising a generation that will not have gone through school, yet it is a much needed and in many cases helps to alleviate poverty. A plate of food a day removes the risk of compromising a child's whole life and gives them back the power to determine their future through education. The second story happened in another informal settlement, yet again in Nairobi, when Mama Rachel Ruto and her team visited to introduce the concept of table banking, an economic empowerment platform known as Joyful Women that enables women and men who were previously financially excluded to save and borrow money from the table and use it to build their enterprises and repay their loans. They observed that there were a lot of children on the streets. When they got to the training venue, they noted that most of the ladies had come with their children, yet it was a school day. Her Excellency and the team learned that the children were not in school because their parents were not able to afford school fees and were also struggling to feed their families. This response reminded Mama Rachel Ruto of Faith, the girl she met the previous year. She felt compelled to take action, and as a result, the Mama Feeding Program was born. Mama Feeding, whose slogan is "Feed a Child, Educate the Future," is a public school feeding program that targets informal settlements and marginalized areas of our country, Kenya. Mama Feeding Program provides 2 nutritious meals a day, porridge at 10 a.m. and a hot meal at lunchtime. This enables learners to stay in school and remain healthy during the school term, further increasing school enrollment and improving overall performance. This compassionate approach now benefits over 10,000 learners, and the goal is to scale up and serve more learners countrywide. In addition, we also hope to find a way of providing meals to the learners when they are on holiday, especially during the long holiday from October through to the beginning of January. Ladies and gentlemen, providing meals to learners at school helps break the cycle of poverty through education. When a child receives at least 1 meal a day, they can concentrate on their studies without enduring the agony of hunger pangs and child labor for survival. Education is indeed a great equalizer with the potential to lift whole communities and generations out of poverty. This program by the World Food Programme and the School Meals Coalition is not only noble, but very timely. When the World Food Programme approached Her Excellency to champion this initiative, as she says, I was more than glad to accept because the request was aligned fully to what I am doing. The initiative would also create a new platform to accelerate our ambition to provide every learner in Kenya with nutritious meals. This program is also aligned to Kenya government commitment to feed learners and ensure they stay in school and get an education. As a nation, we are proud to spearhead an ambitious school meals initiative, the Kenya National School Feeding Program, the program that stands as a beacon of hope and action in these challenging times. Our President, His Excellency Dr. William Ruto, and his government aim to reach a transformative milestone by providing nourishing, climate-smart meals to 10 million children by the year 2030 from the current 2.3 million children. The national government is partnering with the 47 county governments by providing a matching fund for every shilling allocated by a county government for feeding. This has seen a range of school programs initiated across the counties. The Nairobi City County, for example, is building common kitchens that are using near-field technology to ensure 400,000 daily lunches are delivered to learners in 225 learning institutions in the capital city every day. Another county, Murang'a County, is providing enriched porridge to 40,000 early childhood development learners daily, while a third one, the Uasin Gishu County, is providing nutritious milk to 40,000 ECD learners twice a week, to name just but a few. This initiative is more than just a response to hunger. It is a holistic strategy designed as an additional pillar to the foundations of our nation and our children. By ensuring that every child has access to nutritious meals at schools, we are not only addressing immediate nutritional needs, but also building a healthier, more educated, and more resilient future generation. Ladies and gentlemen, the environmental benefits of this initiative are manifold, including reduced food waste, promotion of biodiversity, and conservation of natural resources. Economically, it fosters a more robust, self-sufficient local food economy, creating jobs and sustaining livelihoods. By integrating local supply chains into our school feeding programs, we are opening doors for women farmers and smallholders, enabling them to become key players in the national food system. This approach provides markets for their produce and empowers them with the skills, knowledge, and the resources they need to thrive in a changing climate. These efforts align with a global understanding that empowering women in agriculture leads to more robust and sustainable food systems, as they are often the custodians of biodiversity and champions of nutritional needs in their communities. By prioritizing locally sourced and sustainably produced ingredients, we are reducing the carbon footprint associated with food transportation and storage, which is a significant contributor to global greenhouse gas emissions, as underscored in the white paper. Ladies and gentlemen, through this initiative, Kenya is setting a precedent demonstrating that environmental stewardship and economic empowerment can go together, creating a sustainable future for all. In this pivotal moment, as Kenya strides forward with a bold commitment to our school meals initiative, we extend a call for global cooperation and solidarity. We invite countries around the world to draw inspiration from our efforts and join us in this transformative journey. Our commitment is firm, but the support and core investments from development partners will significantly accelerate our progress and amplify our impact. This is a clarion call for collaboration, a recognition that effective climate action and the creation of sustainable food systems are not solitary endeavors, but collective pursuits. Let us reaffirm the fundamental truth that the integration of food systems with educational and environmental policies is not merely a choice, but an imperative for a sustainable future. The journey we embark upon today, by interweaving these crucial domains, has the power to transform the landscape of global health, education, and environmental stewardship. This holistic approach is our key to unlocking a future where every child thrives in a world that is nourished, educated, and resilient. Our efforts to reimagine school meals, as championed by Kenya and echoed in global dialogues, stands as a testament to what we can achieve when we align our intentions with actions for the greater good. This integration is the cornerstone upon which we can build a world that upholds the values of sustainability, equity, and health for all. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, I stand before you with a hope and optimism. I believe that together we have the collective capacity to usher in transformative changes that will echo through the lives of our children and the very fabric of our planet. A future where every child benefits from the bounty of a planet that we are all taking care of. Thanks to our shared vision, commitment, and cooperation, we can, through this, build a world where the health of our children and the health of our planet are seen not as separate challenges, but as interconnected opportunities for growth, prosperity, and sustainability. Thank you all for your kind attention, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Madam Minister. We will hear from you in a little bit. It's actually very difficult to follow that. I don't really have to add a lot. This is a session that is happening in Education Day at COP28. but it is connected, as Kenya just mentioned, with food system objectives, with health and nutrition objectives, with social protection objectives, hunger reduction objectives. It is a platform for achieving many of the SDGs, many sectoral outcomes in one. And Kenya certainly, as has been demonstrated now, is one of the flagship countries of the School Meals Coalition, part of the 96 countries that have signed up for this. I want to highlight that if you noticed what she just mentioned, we're talking about scale here. We're talking about 10 million children that will be receiving nutritious, climate-friendly, homegrown school meals in Kenya in the near future. We're talking about 418 million children that receive meals around the world today. So this is not a small thing. This is a huge demand for food. This is an enormous platform for healthier diets. And as we'll see in a second from the speaker that will come to the stage with me now, an enormous opportunity for governments all around the world. So please join me in welcoming Professor Donald Bundy from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. He is also the director of the School Health and Nutrition Research Consortium. Thank you. Thank you. We'll show this in a second. So, this is normally called the Dolman and Carmen show. We've done it a couple of times. We like to talk to each other. And we just heard from Kenya a number of times this mention of this famous white paper, which is what you've just given me. This is the white paper that the minister was referring to, which you have been working on with a number of academics for more than a year and a half now. So, Don, what is this? Where does it come from? Tell us a little bit about the origins of this famous white paper that you are kind of unveiling here today.
So I want to say, first of all, that it's really a living white paper. So although that's the current version, so we've just today uploaded the latest version on the website. We still invite all partners to engage, to update it. It's going to be a living document to try and take forward these very important issues about how we think about school meals in transforming food systems. So the link between food and school meals and food systems really goes back to the discussions around homegrown school feeding. And, you know, it was Africa in 2004 that adopted that as a universal policy. In the intervening years, there's been a great deal of discussion, not just about climate, but about biodiversity and environmental impact, food sovereignty, whose food are people eating. All of those things were issues that came up in discussion, which we felt we needed to look at together as part of this analysis. So the research consortium of the School Meals Coalition took on the task of consulting widely on this. And I think at the moment we have 85 organizations that are part of this ongoing discussion. I know there are 160 authors on the current document, and that's not false inclusivity. This is because it's such a broad area of work. It really needs a broad range of expertise. I'm going to call out the name of Silvia Pastorino, who's sitting at the front there, as the pen holder for this great and very difficult group, I'm sure, to work with. But that version is now available on the website. And it's been something of a journey this year. So we've been taking, at various stages, the document. We took it to Rome initially to the sessions there in June. But it's also been taken to very particular groups. So the Hochenheim Declaration on Nutrition in Germany, that group have specifically considered it. The ECOWAS recent group in Senegal have looked at that. In Latin America and the Caribbean, the WFP organized regional meeting there. So there's been a good deal of discussion around this, and then it was brought to Paris for the annual summit of the School Meals Coalition, which gave us the enthusiasm to bring it to bring it here. I'm trying to emphasize by this that this continues to be a living document, but we have made progress. We have some stories to tell.
Quite a consultative process. So, what are the stories that you have come up with? I know you've mentioned several times this is a living document. I'm sure that as you continue the conversation and continue to get more inputs, these insights will evolve. But for now, what are the main insights that are coming out of the paper, but particularly also, what can governments do? We've heard from Kenya and how they are domesticating a lot of these insights. Give us a kind of a summary of what are the main things that governments can consider when they are looking at scaling up their school meals programs.
So once we really got into the discussion, we realized that governments themselves have an extraordinary opportunity to play a role here. When we look at school meals are about 70% of the world's public feeding. The rest of it is in prisons, in hospitals, and those other areas. So it's the huge majority of public feeding. It's about 420 million children a day. It's an industry worth something like $48 billion per year. 98% of those costs are met from domestic government funds. So this is an extraordinary public opportunity to influence food. And that leads us to recognize two particular opportunities. The first is the one which we characterize about children becoming agents of change. That young children and young people coming to school, receiving a meal at school, but also being in an environment where they're educated. This is the crux of the matter. Yeah. That here we have something where governments can make policy changes that control all of those things. They can have a direct influence on the next generation of our society. And you can imagine that part of that change is to establish dietary preferences which are not only good for the children as they grow up, but also good for the planet. And it's that kind of influence that governments have literally overnight. They hold the levers of those policy changes themselves. So that's the big piece of the change. The second part of it is that if governments make changes on the menus, on the diets, and the demand through schools, it's a $48 billion industry. That can have a big impact on the producers of food. So that's a slower process. This is now demand changing supply. But this can strongly influence how countries, how farmers think about the food they're producing for this purpose, so that we can start to think about influencing the agricultural sector by these public education policy changes.
And if we combine that, as we just heard from Kenya, to say, okay, we have potential returns on agriculture, we have potential returns on diets and nutrition outcomes in schools, we also have the issue of getting more children into school and the benefits that accrues then to learning and education. We have a platform that is incredibly powerful in terms of the returns. And I think that's one of the things that the Research Consortium has been working on in terms of the massive returns that these programs have because of that multisectoriality. Okay, all right, so we're going to expand this conversation a little bit to have others join us here on the stage. And I want to bring back Her Excellency Soipantuya again from Kenya, if she can please join us. I would also like to invite the Special Envoy for Climate and Security from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Norway, Mr. Hans Oleg Ibrek, Dr. Roy Steiner, the Senior Vice President of the Rockefeller Foundation for the Food Initiative, and Charles North, Deputy CEO of the Global Partnership for Education. If you can all come and join me here. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome again, Minister. It's a pleasure to see you again. And this time, I think we're also eager to hear from you as the Minister, really what your thoughts are on this. We've heard a little bit more about the consortium's white paper and some of the findings that they're bringing here today. And you've presented from the speech that we just heard this really impressive scale-up plan that Kenya has put forward. Reaching 10 million children in little less than 8 years is quite an ambitious program, and we really salute this. Tell us a little bit more about this climate-friendly approach that Kenya has adopted. What are you planning to do?
Thank you very much. First of all is to say that as a country, we have our bigger climate action plan. We have our ambitions, our targets set out. One of which is a target to reduce our emissions by 32% by 2030 and to hit net zero by 2050. And that comes with a lot of interventions. This school feeding program, and also to say that Kenya has publicly endorsed the white paper, and it's very encouraging to see how responsive the white paper is to Kenya's own school feeding program from many fronts. And the scaling up option is really what is needed at the moment for Kenya. And the other very critical thing, in addition to us setting out our climate action ambitions, is that the domestic commitment becomes very important, even before you extend to seeking support from partners. And that is why Kenya has deliberately even increased its budget from $15 million to this year moving it to $40 million. And that is a demonstration of commitment and underscores the importance of this initiative. The other very critical aspect for Kenya as we look into scaling up is the amount of value chains that are created by this initiative to smallholder farmers. And this speaks right into the heart of our plan as a government, which is the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, which really targets the very low people at the lower cadre of the pyramid. Mm-hmm. It is a poverty alleviation initiative, like has been said, again, by deliberately designing a strategy geared towards reducing the carbon footprints of the school feeding program, speaks to the mitigation and adaptation aspects of our climate action, and most importantly, that economic empowerment it creates to individuals in Kenya. Again, from our own strategy, scaling up from the current 2.3 to 10 million in the long run, and actually we are targeting and pushing to ensure that by 2024 we hit 4 million from the current 2.3. And
so there's a roadmap, there's a plan.
There's a roadmap, there's a strategy, and in there again is the homegrown plan, where then we create sustainable value chains for communities, for smallholder groups, and it is a full circle of a strategy.
Yeah, as we were saying, it's really a platform of several sectors that really come together for this investment to happen. And I have to say the scale and the ambition of the roadmap that Kenya has put together is really admirable. And when we were thinking about putting together this event, we really thought, how can we demonstrate the ambition of countries and that you represent very, very specifically here. This panel is about how can then several partners that you see here in this panel join together to support a government like Kenya that has decided to make a lot of the insights that come out of the white paper a reality. Because we all know that it's not going to be easy, right? It is one thing to have plans in place and in writing. Another thing is to make all of these things happen, to get all the sectors around the table, to get all the investments from the right places, to get the technical assistance that's required. It is going to be a long road, but we wanted to first to say to you, Kenya is not alone, and you'll hear from the partners around this imaginary table, that there's a lot of enthusiasm of supporting Kenya. And one of the things that we didn't hear from Professor Bundy, because we're running out of time, is that part of what the efforts of the research community with the white paper is helping countries like Kenya domesticate the insights that are coming out from the analysis. So this is really an evidence-based approach that's coming out of academia, but that is directly meant to feed into decisions by countries and then guiding the investments of partners. So we go to Roy Steiner from the Rockefeller Foundation, one of our most important strategic partners, really visionary partner with us along this route. Roy, you've been with us, but also with the government of Kenya through this dream of really making these programs climate-friendly, engines of food system transformation, and a platform truly for development. Can you tell us a little bit about why the Rockefeller Foundation is part of this effort and part of the coalition?
Sure. What I'll talk about is some of the innovation that's really exciting us. I mean, to be able to feed hundreds more millions of more children is such an extraordinary goal. And we're seeing, I wanted to share 4 innovations that I think are really going to have a real impact. One of them is in Rwanda, where we worked with the WFP and the government of Rwanda to shift from refined grain to whole grain in school feeding. And most people don't realize that when you refine grain, you lose 20 to 30% of the volume and 90% of the nutrition. And 30 years ago, that made sense because refined grain had a shelf life of 6 to 12 months. Now we have, and whole grain only had a 4-week shelf life. We now have technology that enables whole grains to have much longer shelf lives, 6 months plus. And so suddenly we can save all that land, 20 to 30% of the land, improve nutrition, and it's budget neutral. It doesn't cost the government any extra money. So the school meals is such an amazing way to kind of drive demand, create innovative new products, and change the taste buds of the country. So that's one innovation. The second, I think, is Kenya. I mean, when you think about Kenya and 10 million children, that's 20% of the population. That's a massive demand for new products. And we're very excited. You know, another area that we're really working on is regenerative agriculture, and that requires diverse products. But farmers are not going to grow diverse products if there isn't a market. And school meals provide an amazing market that can really help shift the food system to be more planet friendly. And so one example in Kenya is creating a market for millets and other drought-tolerant crops that can replace rice in many cases, which is often imported and very expensive. So that's one wonderful, and the menu engineering that's possible to that then has a real nutrition and climate impact. The other is one of my favorite is e-cooking, which is mentioned in Don's and Sylvia's report. And my favorite is pressure cookers, because not only do they cut the time of cooking by 50 to 70%, it actually makes the food more nutritious because it unlocks, it prevents some of the anti-nutrient qualities to be there and unlocks and creates bioavailability. So if you can get pressure cookers in, you have this multiple benefits. And one study I saw is that large schools can deforest up to 50 acres a year in Kenya and other countries. So just by shifting to e-cooking, you have this incredible impact on the environment. And that can translate over many countries into millions of acres, preventing that deforestation. And then finally, all of this takes money. We need innovation around financing, and the Sustainable Financing Initiative, et cetera, are working on that. The 2 areas that I'm quite interested in is debt swaps for school meals that creates more fiscal space, but also potentially taxing, unhealthy foods and taking that money and putting that directly towards school meals. And I think you can justify that politically, because without creating fiscal space, it's going to be very, very difficult for governments to reach these incredibly important goals. So with that, I'll stop and
Thank you
hand
so
it
much.
back to you, Carmen.
Thank you so much for that, Roy. And I think a lot of that is exemplified very much by the goals that the Kenyan government has set in terms of all of those potential gains that could be had by the scale up of the program, and then some of the tweaks that you're talking about. I want to mention, you heard from one of the initiatives of the coalition, the School Health and Nutrition Research Consortium, but in the audience here also is Dr. Elizabeth Steer. She is the director of the Sustainable Financing Initiative, which Roy just mentioned, the importance of helping countries to really look at solutions for their fiscal space, domestic resource mobilization, but also working with donors and partners to expand the kind of financing that governments can have to really transform their food systems and their social safety nets, like school meals, in the ambition that Kenya is representing here today. So, talking about that, here to my right we have Norway. Mr. Ibrek, thank you so much for joining us. You're the Special Envoy for Climate and Security from the Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Norway, very much in the same spirit as the Rockefeller Foundation and many others, has been in the kind of the leading cutting edge of this exploration of homegrown school feeding, local value chains, and really localizing the purchase of the food, making it more nutritious but also more sustainable. Tell us about what Norway's vision of this is. You've been a big investor in this area.
Thank you very much, Carmen, and thanks to you and your team for putting this event together. It's a great preparation. So if we all look up, it says unite, act, deliver. And I think actually Kenya, you added at scale. Mm-hmm. And to me, that is actually the key word here. We are united and we have to act and we have to deliver at scale. And I would really like to commend Kenya's leadership. It's really impressive what the minister outlined to us. I'm a father of two. They are now grown-ups, but every morning I had to prepare a lunch bag to them. So that was basically my task. So I know, and we had to prepare sandwiches because that's a typical Norwegian school lunch. So I know what we had to do. And of course, my kids are the lucky ones because we had food, and most children in developing countries don't get a meal during their school day, even though we heard impressive numbers that the World Food Program now is providing. So, of course, this affects their ability to learn, and we've heard this. So why is this issue so important for us? My minister's key priority is food systems, food security, and also education. And, of course, this is a combination then of focus on food systems as well as education. School meal programs is, of course, a tool to address hunger and malnutrition. And it also can help us to provide climate-smart agriculture and also provide a market for small-scale farmers. Another topic that I would like to highlight is that it can also help to attract children to pursue an education in agriculture. I myself was born and raised at an agriculture vocational, so I spent 20 years at an agriculture vocational without a degree because I went somewhere else. But I think it's really important that children get exposed to working in agriculture and also pursuing agriculture education. So what is Norway doing? We've been supporting many countries, and World Food Program is our key partners in doing so. Some examples, we support World Food Program's program in Ethiopia, Malawi, and Niger. And this demonstrates also our commitment to this cause. We are also supporting activities then that aimed at providing sustainable school meals and also clean cooking. And just to build on my colleague's comment on the importance of providing clean sources of cooking, of course based on renewable sources. We are also supporting research and evidence, and I think that's really important that we underpin our agenda with high-quality research. So we support the World Food Program's work on evidence generation and also impact evaluation. We are also supporting the research consortium, again a key initiative of the School Meals Coalition. And I would like to end with just again commending Kenya for the great work and the white paper that the professor introduced to us. I think it's really impressive what you've been doing, and I think that's an example for many countries, and Norway stands ready to support your efforts in this area. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. So we've heard, and I do want to point this out because it is becoming kind of a trademark of everything that is school meals and the School Meals Coalition, that we have in this panel representatives of the climate and environment sector, representatives of the food and food systems, food security sector, and now my next speaker is the representative of the education sector. So this is very much a platform for action around multiple objectives. And sometimes people say, what is the big deal with school meals? Why are you talking so much about this thing? It's just meals in school. Well, it actually isn't just meals in school, and that's what Kenya is telling us. Roy, thank you so much. Charles, thank you so much for joining us here from the Global Partnership for Education, another really important partner, this time from the education sector. You have been also a strategic partner in the coalition. And what are you doing about this? Why is this topic important for GPE?
Thank you, Carmen. I think where we start from is that there's an education crisis. When 7 out of 10 10-year-olds are unable to read a simple text in low and lower middle income countries, that is a crisis. At the same time, as we're all here this week for COP28, we know that there is a climate crisis, which is also undermining learning around the world, frankly, but frankly in the most vulnerable countries and communities in particular. And then you think about the children coming to school, often vulnerable children, especially the ones we heard from Her Excellency, who are coming hungry and malnourished. And it's very hard to learn when you're hungry and malnourished. So we've got a series of crises here, and it just tells us that we need to look at these as interconnected challenges that cry out for an out-of-the-box, or if you will, out-of-the-silo thinking. So with that, we have school meals, the largest social safety net in the world, that enables us to simultaneously tackle the education and learning crisis, the climate crisis, and the transformation of food systems. So I'm very proud to share that GPE is working in close partnership with the World Food Program to design a new initiative to reinforce national capacity to deliver on this potential. It's called the School Nutrition Technical Assistance Facility. The facility will strengthen countries' capacity to achieve increasingly sustainable, gender-responsive, and nationally owned school meal programs, providing school children with safe, diverse, nutritious foods that are locally produced. It will facilitate countries' access to the resources, partnerships, and tools available in the entire School Meals Coalition ecosystem. Specifically, this initiative, working with WFP and members of the School Meals Coalition, will provide capacity support to reinforce government leadership to achieve 4 things. First, that countries will have in place sustainable financing to implement school meal policies and programs. Second, that countries will have improved policy and legal frameworks for the governance of their national school meal programs. Third, that countries are ultimately able to improve implementation of locally grown and purchased school meal programs with strong multisectoral coordination, complementary activities across ministries, and clear monitoring. And finally, our initiative will strengthen the evidence and exchange between countries on their experiences consolidating, expanding their national school meal programs. So we aim to start small with an initial pilot program to reinforce the government of Kenya's pioneering vision. However, our ambition doesn't stop there. We seek to expand this facility to reach all of GPE's partner countries, and we have 90 in the partnership, all of them that want this kind of support. And frankly, we invite everyone to work with us to make this happen. So effective school meal programs can help to get us closer addressing the learning, the climate, and the hunger crises all at one time. This is a powerful investment for our children, our planet and our future. So it's great to be working with all of you.
Thank you so much for that. And I just want to mention that this is the first time that GPE has announced that this is, the pilot is going to happen in Kenya. So it was also very important for us to announce that here in COP28, that really, as I mentioned, we are surrounding Kenya with support to really make the reality this ambitious scale up that the government has put in place. This is a typical approach of what you've heard in terms of the School Meals Coalition. Governments that are putting in place really robust and ambitious commitments and targets. Many of them are really ambitious. Kenya is an example, you've seen that, but I also want to mention we have the government of Rwanda, the government of Bangladesh, the government of Benin, government of Nepal. At presidential level, prime ministers and presidents and ministers of education, of agriculture are coming together to say we want to scale up our programs and reach universal coverage by 2030 and sometimes even sooner than that. And so I think that's one of the messages of this conversation, that it is at scale. So we're not talking about very small little projects here and there. We're talking about reaching 20, 30% of a population of a country with a national policy such as this one. We're talking about education outcomes. We're talking about food system outcomes, climate outcomes, social protection outcomes, nutrition and diet outcomes, all in one investment, which is why governments are making such big commitments to this topic. But obviously, part of what we've seen here today is that it's not easy, and it's not a given that this potential will actually become a reality. And so access to financing from the different sectors, as has been illustrated here today, but also the technical assistance that needs to happen to bring the kind of know-how, the kind of best practices, the research, the evidence to inform some of these decisions as governments move forward is going to be super important, including helping them to think through some of the fiscal space issues that we've discussed. These are the challenges that are in front of us. I think we have leaders such as President Ruto, the First Lady of Kenya, the ministers of Kenya that are showing us the way, and many other countries that I think are following in your footsteps, and it's going to be very exciting to see how this develops. We hope that we will meet 2 years from now in COP30 in Brazil, hosted by the government of Brazil, who is also a co-chair of the School Meals Coalition, to see where you are in Kenya and also in many other countries. I want to thank the panelists that have joined me here today. And to close this really important panel, I want to invite Ms. Kirsten Stendahl, the Special Envoy for Climate and Environment of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Finland, a co-chair of the School Meals Coalition. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. It is, of course, a great privilege for me to join you here today on behalf of the Finnish government and deliver these closing words. This has been an extremely dynamic and truly important event. I would like to thank the World Food Programme. I would like to thank you, Carmen, and your team at the Coalition Secretariat for organizing this event. I would like to thank our host, the United Arab Emirates, for prioritizing food systems in the COP28 agenda. And of course, a particularly special thank you to Kenya for taking such an inspiring step and setting a model for others on how school meals can be key in both food system transformation and climate action. Finland has been a co-chair of the Global School Meals Coalition since its inception in 2021, together with France and more recently with Brazil. The first ministerial meeting of the School Meals Coalition took place in Helsinki in Finland in 2022. Finland remains committed to continue our high-level political, financial and technical support to the coalition. In addition to being the co-chair, our Minister for Foreign Trade and Development, Mr. Ville Tavio, is also the School Meals Coalition champion. Ladies and gentlemen, we are delighted to see the coalition grow in membership and partnerships. Our event here today highlights how the coalition is not just about high-level dialogue, but also about concretely supporting countries and partners to come together and move forward to achieve the goals of the coalition. The research consortium is a valuable asset for the coalition. The insightful presentation and discussions on the white paper here today highlights this clearly. I also found the panel discussion extremely rich and inspiring. We heard the discussion on financing for school meals, and indeed, we do need innovative solutions. We should also increasingly look at ways in which the private sector can be brought into our work. We need partnerships across the board. The panel also touched upon market-based incentives, sustainable financing, and ways in which we can change food habits to be less damaging to our climate and the environment. Here, developing capacity in administrations at the local level can lead to sustainable solutions. Building a more resilient world requires policies that tackle several challenges at once. The school meal programs are fantastic system-level solutions with broad, positive, multifaceted ways of creating change. They produce high returns in terms of education, results, gender equality, health, social protection, and agricultural and economic development. And, as we have heard today, they aid us in combating climate change and supporting climate action and biodiversity protection. In Finland, we have our own strong and long experience of the benefits of school meals. In the beginning of the 20th century, Finland was a poor country where 40% of 15-year-olds did not know how to read. In 1943, Finland was the first country in the world to provide free school meals. We did so in the middle of a devastating war and as recipients of foreign humanitarian aid. School meals were a transformative social innovation of their time, and they are a key part of the Finnish welfare success story. Against this backdrop, we feel very privileged to be working with you on this important issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. I think this concludes the event. Thank you for coming. Thank you for those watching online. We wish all the countries that are not part of the coalition that might be listening here today, please join us. Partners that haven't signed, also please join us. Lots of work to do for Kenya and other countries. See you next year. Bye-bye.